Number 1. This 1968 Ford Fairlane two-door hardtop honestly feels like one of those classic American cars that immediately captures attention the moment you see it. In my opinion, the Fairlane has always been one of Ford's most underrated muscle-era cars because it perfectly balances clean styling, V8 power, and timeless late 60s character. And this particular example sounds incredibly impressive. The first thing that instantly stands out to me is the fact that this car underwent a ground-up restoration. Personally, I think that makes a huge difference because restoring a classic car from the ground up usually means the builder went through the vehicle carefully instead of only fixing cosmetic issues. According to the seller, nearly everything on the car is new, and honestly, that's exactly the kind of thing many classic car enthusiasts hope to hear when looking at a restored vehicle. Visually, I think the off-white exterior gives this Fairlane a very clean and elegant personality. Many muscle cars from this era are painted in loud colors, but personally, I actually like how this softer color gives the car a more refined and classy appearance while still keeping that strong American muscle presence. Combined with the hardtop body style, the entire car has a smooth and timeless look that still feels stylish decades later. One of the biggest highlights for me is definitely the 428 V8 under the hood. In my opinion, engines like the 428 represent the golden age of American horsepower. Back in the late 60s, automakers competed to create larger and more powerful engines, and Ford's big block V8s became legendary because of their torque, sound, and overall performance. Personally, I think a 428-powered Fairlane sounds like an absolute monster on the road. And honestly, classic big block engines have a completely different personality compared to modern performance cars today. Modern vehicles may have advanced technology and impressive speed numbers, but older V8 muscle cars deliver a raw and emotional experience that feels far more mechanical and alive. I can easily imagine this Fairlane firing up with a deep rumbling exhaust note that instantly turns heads. The automatic transmission also fits the character of the car very well in my opinion. Some enthusiasts prefer manual gearboxes, but personally, I think automatics work perfectly for big American cruisers like this Fairlane. It allows the car to feel smooth and relaxed during regular driving while still letting the massive V8 power shine whenever you press the accelerator. Another thing I really appreciate is the hardtop design itself. In my opinion, hardtop muscle cars from the late 60s have some of the best silhouettes ever created. Without the heavy roof pillar breaking up the side profile, the car looks longer, cleaner, and more elegant. Even parked, this Fairlane probably has incredible road presence. The seller also mentions that the car only has around 500 miles since restoration, which honestly feels extremely low. Personally, I think that's one of the most attractive parts of the listing because it suggests the restoration is still very fresh. Cars with extremely low post-restoration mileage often feel almost brand new mechanically while still carrying the charm and personality of a vintage vehicle. Another thing that stands out to me is the confidence in the seller's description. They specifically mention that the car must be seen in person to appreciate, and honestly, I understand exactly what they mean. Some classic cars simply look different in real life compared to photos. Details like chrome trim, paint depth, engine presentation, and overall craftsmanship often feel much more impressive when standing directly beside the vehicle. Personally, I think cars like this appeal to people who truly appreciate the combination of classic American design and restored performance. It's not just transportation anymore, it becomes something emotional and personal. A car like this turns ordinary drives into experiences. And honestly, what I love most about classic cars from this era is how much personality they have. Modern vehicles today are filled with touchscreens, computers, and electronic systems, but many of them feel similar to each other. Cars like this 1968 Ford Fairlane feel completely different. They have sound, vibration, smell, and character that modern cars often can't duplicate. Now, the asking price is $45,800, and while that may sound expensive to some people, in my opinion, it makes sense considering the ground-up restoration, legendary 428 V8, low mileage since restoration, and overall presentation of the car. Restoring a classic vehicle properly takes an enormous amount of time and money, so finding one that's already completed at a high level can actually save future owners a huge amount of effort. Overall, in my opinion, this 1968 Ford Fairlane two-door hardtop feels like a true representation of classic American muscle and craftsmanship. It combines timeless styling, serious V8 performance, and the kind of restored condition that's becoming harder to find every year. And honestly, I think this is exactly the kind of classic car that would make every drive feel memorable and special. Number 2, today we're taking a look at a very cool and honest 1968 Plymouth Satellite Sport, and honestly, in my opinion, this is the type of classic Mopar that feels built to be enjoyed rather than hidden away in a garage. It's not a perfect trailer queen, and that's actually part of what makes it interesting. This car has a mix of classic muscle car attitude, modern upgrades, and a seller who seems very upfront about both the good and the bad. Originally, this Satellite came with a 318 engine, but now it's been upgraded with a mild 383 big block V8. And personally, I think that's a huge improvement for a car like this. The 383 is one of those legendary Mopar engines that delivers strong torque, great sound, and that raw old-school muscle car feel people still love today. Combined with the fresh 727 automatic transmission, this Plymouth probably feels much more alive on the road compared to its original setup. The seller also mentions electronic ignition, an Edelbrock 1411 carburetor, HP exhaust manifolds, and a billet distributor. Honestly, those are all solid upgrades that help improve reliability and drivability while still keeping the vintage muscle car personality intact. It sounds like someone spent real time and money trying to make this car enjoyable to drive instead of just leaving it stock and outdated. Another thing I personally like is that the owner continues working on the car while driving it. To me, that's usually a sign that the car is actively being cared for instead of sitting neglected somewhere. Classic cars often become better over time when owners slowly improve them piece by piece. The addition of a modern classic auto air conditioning system is another major bonus. Let's be honest, old muscle cars can get brutally hot during summer drives, so having upgraded AC makes a huge difference if someone actually plans on cruising the car regularly. The retro sound stereo also adds a nice modern touch without completely ruining the vintage look of the interior. Visually, the green exterior gives the car a very classic late 60s Mopar vibe. In my opinion, green is one of those colors that works surprisingly well on old Plymouth muscle cars because it gives them a unique personality compared to the usual black or red builds. It helps the car stand out while still looking period correct. Now, one thing I respect about this listing is the honesty. The seller openly mentions that the passenger floor pan and trunk pan need to be redone because previous repairs were poorly done. They also mention an oil pan gasket drip. Honestly, transparency like that is important because it gives buyers a more realistic idea of what they're looking at instead of pretending the car is flawless. And truthfully, most classic muscle cars from this era will always need something here or there unless you're spending extremely high money on fully restored examples. In my opinion, many enthusiasts actually prefer cars like this because you can still enjoy driving them while gradually improving them over time. The seller also says they love the car but may sell it to help purchase land, which honestly feels like a pretty relatable reason. Sometimes life priorities change, and classic cars end up getting passed along to the next enthusiast who can continue the project. What I also like is the overall attitude of the listing. The owner clearly wants serious buyers only and doesn't seem interested in wasting time with random offers or unnecessary messages. Usually, sellers who speak directly like that know exactly what they have and understand the amount of work already invested into the vehicle. Located in Georgetown, Kentucky, this 1968 Plymouth Satellite Sport is listed for $31,000. Overall, in my opinion, this looks like a fun and well-upgraded Mopar muscle car with strong big block power, useful modern touches, and enough personality to make it stand out both on the street and at local car shows. Number 3. An absolutely stunning 1966 Chevrolet Chevelle that perfectly blends classic American muscle car heritage with modern performance engineering and everyday drivability. In my opinion, this is the kind of build that represents what many enthusiasts dream about when restoring a classic muscle car. Instead of simply keeping the vehicle factory stock or building an uncomfortable race car, this Chevelle appears to have been carefully designed to deliver serious performance while still remaining refined, reliable, and enjoyable to drive on modern roads. Finished in a deep black exterior paired with a striking red interior, the car carries an aggressive appearance that immediately commands attention wherever it goes. Personally, I think the black and red color combination works perfectly on a first-generation Chevelle because it highlights the muscular body lines while giving the car a timeless and intimidating presence. Under the hood sits one of the biggest highlights of the entire build, a fresh 496 cubic inch roller engine. In my opinion, this is what truly transforms the car from a standard classic cruiser into a modernized muscle machine with enormous performance potential. Big block chevelles have always been respected for their incredible torque and straight-line acceleration, and a built 496 engine takes that experience to an entirely different level. The seller describes the car as delivering the sound, presence, and torque expected from a serious big cube muscle car, and personally, I can imagine the chevelle producing the kind of deep aggressive exhaust note that instantly grabs attention before the car even becomes visible. The engine is also equipped with a Holley Sniper EFI fuel injection system, which in my opinion is one of the smartest upgrades for a classic muscle car. Older carbureted setups often require tuning adjustments and can become temperamental in changing weather conditions, but electronic fuel injection dramatically improves reliability, throttle response, cold starts, and overall drivability. This means the car likely feels much more modern behind the wheel compared to many vintage muscle cars while still maintaining its classic personality. Personally, I think combining a massive 496 engine with modern EFI technology creates the perfect balance between old-school muscle and modern convenience. Power is sent through an automatic transmission to a posy rear end, helping maximize traction and making the car far more enjoyable during hard acceleration. The seller also mentions that the chevelle has received a fully upgraded suspension system along with a professionally lowered stance. In my opinion, suspension upgrades are just as important as engine upgrades on powerful classic cars because they dramatically improve handling, stability, and overall confidence at higher speeds. Many older muscle cars produce strong horsepower but struggle with body roll and outdated suspension geometry. This chevelle appears to address those weaknesses while still preserving the aggressive character that makes muscle cars so exciting to drive. One of the most impressive details in the listing is the full Wilwood multi-piston disc brake kit installed on all four corners. Personally, I think modern braking systems are among the best investments for high-performance classic cars because they improve both safety and driving confidence. Factory drum brakes from the 1960s simply cannot match the stopping power and responsiveness of modern performance disc brakes. With a powerful 496 cubic inch engine under the hood, upgraded brakes become essential for controlling all that performance safely and effectively. The exterior presentation of this chevelle also sounds exceptional. According to the seller, the paint and bodywork have been finished to an extremely high standard, and the car sits on 18x8 American Racing torque thrust wheels wrapped in new Bridgestone performance tires. In my opinion, this wheel and tire combination gives the chevelle a modern pro touring appearance without ruining the classic styling. The professionally lowered stance likely enhances the car's road presence even further, making it appear wider, lower, and more aggressive while still remaining tasteful rather than overly customized. Inside the cabin, the car continues blending vintage muscle car style with modern upgrades. The addition of a Bluetooth sound system improves everyday usability, while racing-inspired modern seatbelts add an extra layer of safety and functionality. Personally, I think tasteful interior upgrades like these are important because they make classic cars more comfortable and practical without removing the nostalgic atmosphere that enthusiasts love. The red interior likely creates a dramatic contrast against the black exterior, giving the car an authentic high-performance muscle car personality from every angle. The seller specifically emphasizes that this is not a cheaply assembled project car, but instead a meticulously sorted build completed with attention to detail throughout. In my opinion, that statement matters because many modified muscle cars look impressive visually but suffer from poor craftsmanship or unfinished mechanical work underneath. This chevelle appears to have been carefully planned and professionally executed to create a complete package rather than simply focusing on horsepower alone. The fact that the car reportedly drives like a much more modern performance vehicle while still maintaining classic muscle car character makes it especially appealing. According to the listing, the vehicle has only around 5,000 miles driven since completion and has had more than 3 owners throughout its lifetime. The seller also notes that the car is fully paid off. Personally, I think the relatively low mileage after the build suggests that the vehicle remains fresh and well-preserved while still being road-tested enough to sort out potential issues. Priced at $71,000 and located in Cold Spring Harbor, New York, this 1966 Chevrolet Chevelle represents far more than just a restored classic car. In my opinion, it is a professionally modernized American muscle machine built to deliver both show-quality presentation and serious real-world performance. With its massive 496 engine, upgraded suspension, modern braking system, electronic fuel injection, aggressive stance, and beautifully finished appearance, this Chevelle captures everything enthusiasts love about classic American muscle while solving many of the drivability limitations that older muscle cars traditionally struggled with. Number 4. a bold and aggressive 1970 Dodge Cornet R/T tribute that perfectly captures the spirit of Mopar muscle cars from one of the greatest performance eras in American automotive history. In my opinion, this car stands out because it combines the appearance and attitude of a real R/T model with the drivability and originality of a well-preserved Cornet 500 platform. It has the kind of classic muscle car presence that immediately attracts attention, especially with its factory-style burnt orange color combination and unmistakable 1970 Dodge bodylines. Originally built as a Dodge Cornet 500, this car has been transformed into an R/T tribute while still retaining many of its original components, including the original 383 cubic inch V8 engine and automatic transmission. In my opinion, keeping the original drivetrain adds a lot of character and authenticity to the car because it preserves an important connection to its history rather than turning it into a completely modernized project. The 383 four-barrel engine has always been respected among Mopar enthusiasts for its strong torque, smooth power delivery, and classic muscle car sound. Combined with the automatic transmission, this setup likely makes the car both fun and comfortable to drive on the street. The seller mentions that the car runs and drives well, which is extremely important for a classic muscle car from this era. Many vintage vehicles look impressive in photos but still require major mechanical work before they can actually be enjoyed. In this case, the Cornet appears to be a usable and enjoyable cruiser that someone could take to local car shows, weekend events, or highway drives immediately after purchase. In my opinion, that drivability makes the car much more appealing because classic cars should not only look good, they should also deliver the experience people imagine when they think about driving an old-school American muscle machine. One of the most attractive details about this car is the factory-style burnt orange exterior paired with the original matching interior colors. During the late 1960s and early 1970s, Mopar became famous for producing muscle cars in bold high-impact colors, and burnt orange fits perfectly into that era of aggressive styling and performance-focused design. In my opinion, the color gives this Cornet a lot of personality because it instantly feels authentic to the period while also standing out from the more common black, white, or red muscle cars seen today. Inside, the vehicle features bucket seats and a center console, creating a much sportier and more driver-focused atmosphere compared to standard bench seat setups. The car is also equipped with power steering and factory air conditioning, which adds an extra level of comfort and usability that many classic muscle cars do not have. In my opinion, air conditioning is a huge advantage on vintage vehicles because it makes the car far more enjoyable during warmer weather and allows owners to use the car more regularly rather than only on cool evenings or short drives. Another especially interesting detail is the inclusion of 2 original build sheets. For collectors and Mopar enthusiasts, original documentation always adds value because it helps verify the car's history, options, and authenticity. The title reportedly states 15,000 original miles, although the seller honestly mentions they cannot fully confirm whether that mileage is accurate. In my opinion, the honesty about the mileage uncertainty is actually refreshing because transparency is extremely important in the classic car market. Many older vehicles have unclear histories, so straightforward communication from the seller is always a positive sign. The seller also describes the car as looking great overall, although not perfect. Personally, I think that can actually make the vehicle even more enjoyable because many enthusiasts prefer driver-quality muscle cars they can actually use without constantly worrying about every small imperfection. Sometimes slightly imperfect classics create a much more relaxed ownership experience because the focus stays on driving and enjoying the car rather than trying to preserve flawless condition at all times. What really makes this Cornet appealing is the balance it offers between classic Mopar styling, original components, and comfortable street usability. Some muscle cars become so heavily modified that they lose their vintage personality, while others remain completely stock but feel outdated to drive regularly. This car seems to sit comfortably between those two extremes. It keeps the classic appearance, original drivetrain, and period-correct atmosphere while still offering comfort features like power steering and air conditioning that make it easier to enjoy on modern roads. Located in Dayton, Ohio, and offered at $39,000, this 1970 Dodge Cornet R/T Tribute represents a chance to own a classic Mopar with real presence, strong V8 power, and vintage muscle car character without stepping into the much higher prices often associated with fully documented original R/T models. In my opinion, this is the kind of car that would feel right at home at cruise nights, local car shows, or simply parked in a garage where its bold styling and burnt orange finish could still be appreciated every single day. Number 5. 1967 Buick Skylark Gran Sport Coupe. In my opinion, This 1967 Buick Skylark GS clone is the kind of classic American muscle car that manages to combine vintage style, strong V8 performance, and everyday drivability in a very appealing package. Even though it is technically a Gran Sport clone rather than an original factory GS model, it still captures the aggressive look and personality that made Buick muscle cars from the late 1960s so respected among enthusiasts. What makes this car especially interesting is that it appears to be built as a solid driver rather than an untouchable trailer queen, which means the next owner can actually enjoy the car on the road without constantly worrying about keeping it hidden away. Under the hood sits the highly desirable Buick 400 cubic inch V8 engine paired with a 350 automatic transmission. Personally, I think the 400 engine is one of the biggest highlights of this entire car because Buick big block engines from this era are known for producing strong torque and smooth power delivery. Unlike some high-revving muscle car engines that demand constant aggressive driving, Buick performance cars often delivered a more balanced combination of power and comfort. That makes a car like this especially enjoyable for cruising, weekend road trips, or local car events. According to the seller, the vehicle is a great driver and can comfortably be driven anywhere, which is always a very positive sign when discussing older classic cars. Another thing I really like about the Skylark is the fact that it appears to retain much of its original character while still benefiting from tasteful upgrades and maintenance. The seller mentions new tires and Buick wheels, which likely improve both appearance and road manners. The body is also described as solid, which is extremely important for a vehicle from this generation. Personally, I think solid body condition is often more valuable than perfect paint because rust repair on late 1960s muscle cars can become incredibly expensive and time-consuming. A strong foundation gives future owners much more flexibility whether they want to simply enjoy the car as is or continue improving it over time. The car's blue exterior likely gives it exactly the kind of classic muscle car presence enthusiasts love to see from a late 1960s Buick. In my opinion, Buick muscle cars from this era often look slightly more refined and elegant compared to some of their competitors while still maintaining an aggressive stance and strong road presence. The seller also mentions that the car gets a lot of attention, which honestly does not surprise me. You simply do not see many Skylark GS-style cars on the road anymore, especially examples that still appear complete, clean, and drivable. Inside the cabin, the original interior is reportedly still in good condition with only very minor cosmetic imperfections. Personally, I think preserving original interiors whenever possible adds a lot of authenticity to a classic car because it helps maintain the atmosphere and character of the era. The fact that the lights and gauges all work is another important detail because electrical issues can often become frustrating on older vehicles. Having functional gauges and accessories makes the car feel more complete and usable as a real driver rather than just a weekend project. One particularly interesting feature is the factory air conditioning system. The seller notes that the air still blows but is currently not hooked up. In my opinion, having the original factory AC components still present is a positive sign because many classic muscle cars lost their factory air conditioning systems over the years. Even if it needs to be reconnected or serviced, retaining the original setup gives the next owner the opportunity to restore full functionality while maintaining period-correct equipment. The seller also mentions that the car comes with wheel skirts and additional trim pieces, which adds even more value for someone interested in preserving or slightly customizing the vehicle. Personally, I think having extra original parts included with a classic car is always beneficial because certain trim components for late 1960s vehicles can sometimes become difficult or expensive to locate later on. Another reason I think this Skylark stands out is because Buick muscle cars often get overlooked compared to more common Chevelles, Mustangs, or Camaros from the same era. Because of that, cars like this sometimes offer a unique opportunity to own something a little different while still getting the same classic American muscle car experience. The combination of rear-wheel drive, big block V8 power, vintage styling, and late 1960s design gives this Buick the kind of personality that modern cars simply cannot replicate. With only around 50,000 miles shown on the odometer and a clear title, this 1967 Buick Skylark GS clone seems like a very appealing option for someone searching for a solid classic driver with muscle car character and strong street presence. It may not be a perfect concours-level restoration, but personally, I think that actually makes it more enjoyable because it encourages the owner to drive and experience the car rather than treat it like a fragile museum piece. Located in Buffalo Grove, Illinois, this classic Buick is currently listed for $20,000 or best offer, and the seller is willing to provide additional photos and videos for interested buyers. Overall, I think this Skylark represents a great balance between vintage style, usable performance, originality, and affordability in today's classic muscle car market. Number 6. This 1973 Cadillac Coupe Deville honestly feels like the perfect example of old-school American luxury from an era when cars were built to feel massive, comfortable, and full of personality. In my opinion, classic Cadillacs from the early 70s represent a completely different kind of automotive experience compared to modern luxury cars today. Back then, luxury wasn't about giant touchscreens or complicated technology. It was about presence, comfort, chrome, and smooth cruising. And this Coupe Deville seems to capture that feeling perfectly. The first thing that immediately stands out to me is the blue exterior paired with the black interior. Personally, I think this combination gives the car a very classy and timeless appearance. The long body lines, oversized proportions, and chrome details already make the Coupe Deville look impressive, but the blue paint adds even more vintage elegance to the overall design. Cars like this don't just blend into traffic, they dominate attention everywhere they go. One thing I've always loved about 70s Cadillacs is how huge and comfortable they feel. Modern cars today focus heavily on efficiency and compact design, but classic Cadillacs were built with comfort as the top priority. In my opinion, this is the kind of car made for smooth highway cruising, relaxed weekend drives, and simply enjoying the road instead of rushing from place to place. According to the seller, this Coupe Deville has around 83,000 miles, which honestly feels pretty reasonable for a car that's over 50 years old. But what really catches my attention is the amount of work already done to the vehicle. The seller mentions newer paint, a new leather interior, a new top, new tires, a new stereo, and several recent mechanical updates. Personally, I think that makes this Cadillac much more appealing because it sounds like someone actually cared about maintaining and improving the car instead of letting it slowly deteriorate over time. The new leather interior is probably one of my favorite details because interior comfort is such an important part of the Cadillac experience. In my opinion, classic Cadillacs should feel soft, luxurious, and relaxing inside, and having fresh leather likely makes the cabin feel much newer while still preserving that vintage atmosphere. The new top also adds a lot to the car's overall presentation. Details like that make older luxury cars feel more complete and cared for. Combined with the newer paint, I imagine this Coupe Deville probably looks incredibly clean driving down the road. Mechanically, the seller mentions a long list of maintenance and upgrades, including a new battery, starter, tune-up, transmission service, pinion seal, rebuilt carburetor, and new wheel cylinders. Honestly, in my opinion, that's one of the strongest parts of the listing. Older cars always require maintenance, so seeing all those recent repairs gives me much more confidence in the reliability of the vehicle. The seller even says the car runs great and strong, and honestly, I can imagine this Cadillac floating down the highway smoothly with that classic American V8 sound coming through the dual exhaust system. Personally, I think dual exhaust always makes vintage American cars feel more alive and powerful. Another detail that instantly caught my attention is the Craigar 30-wire wheels. In my opinion, wheels completely change the personality of a car, and these give the Cadillac a strong old-school custom cruiser look. Combined with the massive body style, the wire wheels make the entire car feel even more iconic and period-correct. One thing I also appreciate is the seller being honest about the chrome being driver quality and the air conditioning currently not working. Personally, I prefer sellers who are upfront about imperfections because no 50-year-old car is truly flawless. And honestly, considering everything else this Cadillac offers, those issues don't seem too serious to me. The seller also mentions there's no rust anywhere, and honestly, that might be one of the best things you can hear about a classic car from this era. Rust is one of the biggest enemies of old American cars, especially large luxury vehicles like this. So hearing the body is rust-free immediately makes the car much more attractive in my opinion. What I personally love most about cars like this is the atmosphere they create. Modern luxury cars are fast, quiet, and filled with technology, but many of them feel cold and disconnected. Classic Cadillacs like this Coupe Deville feel completely different. They have soul, character, and a unique kind of presence that modern vehicles simply cannot recreate. And honestly, I think cars like this represent a lost era of American automotive culture. Back then, luxury cars were oversized, dramatic, and unapologetically bold. They weren't designed to be subtle. They were designed to make a statement. The asking price of $15,000 honestly feels pretty reasonable to me considering all the recent work, the rust-free condition, and the overall style of the car. Classic Cadillacs have developed a strong following over the years, especially well-maintained examples that can still be driven regularly like this one. I also like the fact that the seller says they drive the car all the time. In my opinion, classic cars that are driven regularly often end up being healthier mechanically than cars that sit untouched for years. It suggests this Cadillac is still being enjoyed the way it was meant to be. Overall, in my opinion, this 1973 Cadillac Coupe Deville feels like the perfect combination of vintage American luxury, comfort, and personality. From the blue paint and wire wheels to the fresh interior and smooth V8 cruising experience, this car represents a completely different era of driving. And honestly, I think that's exactly what makes classic Cadillacs like this so special today. Number 7. Today we're looking at a heavily upgraded 1966 Ford Mustang Coupe, and honestly, this is the kind of classic Mustang that blends old-school style with modern performance in a really interesting way. In my opinion, builds like this are becoming more popular because they give you the vintage look everyone loves while making the car much more enjoyable and reliable to actually drive. At first glance, the red exterior with the black interior already gives this Mustang that timeless American muscle car appearance. You really can't go wrong with that color combination on a first-generation Mustang. Even after all these years, these cars still have a look that instantly grabs attention wherever they go. But what really makes this car stand out is what's been done underneath. According to the seller, the Mustang now has a built 347-stroker engine paired with a 4R70W transmission. And honestly, that's a serious upgrade compared to the original setup these cars came with back in 1966. The 347-stroker is known for delivering strong horsepower and torque while still fitting nicely into classic Ford builds. Combined with the overdrive transmission, this Mustang probably feels much more modern and comfortable on the highway than a stock mid-60s car. Personally, I think that's one of the best things about Restomod-style classics like this. You still get the vintage body lines and nostalgic feel, but you don't have to sacrifice drivability. Cars like this are usually easier to cruise long distances, handle traffic better, and feel more dependable overall. The seller also mentions a coilover front suspension setup along with a front disc brake conversion. Those are huge improvements for a classic Mustang because the original suspension and drum brakes from the 60s can feel outdated by modern standards. With upgraded suspension and disc brakes, this car probably handles and stops much better than it did when it first left the factory. Another detail I really like is the dual exhaust through the rear valance. In my opinion, that's one of the cleanest and most aggressive looks you can give an early Mustang. And with the built stroker motor, I can only imagine this car sounds absolutely incredible when accelerating. The car also comes equipped with air conditioning, which is a major bonus if someone actually plans to drive and enjoy the car regularly. Let's be honest, classic cars are much more fun when you can comfortably cruise them during hot summer days instead of overheating inside the cabin. Inside, the Mustang features new TMI seats, which are a popular upgrade in the classic Ford world. They help modernize the comfort level while still keeping the interior looking period correct. The seller also mentions there's much more work done to the car overall, showing that this wasn't just a quick budget build thrown together overnight. Now, the seller does mention the paint is driver quality, and honestly, I actually appreciate that kind of honesty. It means the car likely looks very good in person without pretending to be a flawless six-figure show car. In my opinion, driver quality classics are often more fun because you can enjoy them without constantly worrying about every tiny scratch or imperfection. Another thing I like about this build is that it sounds balanced. Sometimes heavily modified classics lose their original character, but this Mustang still seems to keep the spirit of a 60s pony car while adding upgrades that make it more practical and exciting to drive today. With around 60,000 miles listed and all the upgrades already completed, this could be a great option for someone wanting a classic Mustang without having to start a major restoration project from scratch. A lot of expensive work appears to already be done. Located in Palmyra, New York, this 1966 Ford Mustang Coupe is listed for $38,500. Overall, in my opinion, this looks like a very cool Restomod Mustang with classic styling, modern performance upgrades, and the kind of road presence that never really goes out of style. Number 8. A beautifully restored 1972 Chevrolet Monte Carlo that perfectly combines classic American muscle car attitude with modern suspension upgrades, aggressive styling, and reliable street performance. In my opinion, this is the type of build that attracts attention not only because of its appearance, but also because it appears to have been carefully assembled to actually drive and perform well on modern roads. Finished in a deep black exterior paired with a black interior, The car carries a sleek and intimidating presence that perfectly matches the long body styling of the first-generation Monte Carlo. Personally, I think black is one of the best colors for a classic Monte Carlo because it highlights the car's muscular lines while giving it a clean and sophisticated look at the same time. Under the hood sits a 402 big block Chevrolet engine that has been mostly kept stock but freshened up for improved reliability and performance. In my opinion, the 402 big block is one of the highlights of this build because it delivers the kind of deep torque and classic muscle car sound that enthusiasts expect from early 1970s American performance cars. Big block Chevrolets have always been known for producing effortless power and strong acceleration, and this Monte Carlo likely delivers that classic driving experience every time the throttle is pressed. The engine is paired with a rebuilt and strengthened TH400 automatic transmission, which is widely respected for being one of General Motors' toughest transmissions ever produced. Personally, I think that combination creates an ideal balance between reliability and performance, especially for a heavy luxury muscle car like the Monte Carlo. One of the most impressive parts of this listing is the extensive restoration work completed only 3 years ago. According to the seller, the body was stripped down to bare metal, and nearly every component on the vehicle has either been replaced or refinished. In my opinion, restorations completed to this level are far more desirable than simple cosmetic refreshes because they show that significant time, effort, and money were invested into properly rebuilding the vehicle from the ground up. The seller also mentions that the car has already been driven around 8,000 miles since the restoration with absolutely zero issues. Personally, I think that detail is extremely important because it suggests the car has already been tested and sorted mechanically instead of being a freshly completed build with unknown reliability. The suspension setup is another major reason why this Monte Carlo stands out. The car features a full air ride suspension system along with tubular control arms in both the front and rear. Oversized sway bars have also been added to improve stability and handling. In my opinion, these upgrades completely transform the way a classic car like this drives. Many vintage muscle cars feel loose and outdated compared to modern performance vehicles, but suspension improvements like these can dramatically improve ride quality, cornering ability, and overall driver confidence. The adjustable air ride setup also allows the vehicle to achieve an aggressive lowered stance while still maintaining comfort and practicality for everyday driving. Personally, I think the lowered stance combined with the oversized 20-inch wheels gives the Monte Carlo a modern pro touring appearance without losing its classic identity. The exterior presentation of the vehicle sounds equally impressive. The seller describes the paint as deep black with a 7-year ceramic coating applied last spring, helping preserve the finish and maintain its shine. In my opinion, black paint on a large American coupe requires significant attention to detail because imperfections become much easier to notice. The fact that the seller emphasizes the quality of the finish suggests that the car has been maintained carefully since the restoration was completed. The addition of LED lighting throughout the vehicle also modernizes the appearance slightly while improving visibility and reliability compared to older factory lighting systems. Another feature that likely contributes to the car's strong road presence is the 3-inch exhaust system paired with Flowmaster 40 mufflers. Personally, I think exhaust sound plays a major role in the personality of a classic muscle car, and Flowmaster systems are famous for delivering that deep aggressive rumble that many enthusiasts love. Combined with the 402 big block engine, this Monte Carlo likely produces a powerful exhaust note that instantly announces its presence long before the car even arrives. Inside, the Monte Carlo continues its blend of classic style and modern upgrades. The car retains power windows and a clean black interior while maintaining the luxurious atmosphere these cars were originally known for. Unlike smaller muscle cars focused entirely on performance, the Monte Carlo was designed to combine sporty styling with personal luxury, creating a smoother and more comfortable driving experience. In my opinion, that combination makes cars like this especially enjoyable for long cruises and highway driving because they deliver muscle car character without sacrificing comfort. The seller also mentions that the car has earned multiple Best of Show trophies, which personally tells me that the vehicle has likely attracted attention not only for its appearance but also for the quality of the restoration and overall presentation. Award-winning cars often reflect a higher level of craftsmanship and detail compared to average street builds, and this Monte Carlo appears to fit that description very well. Number 9. A classic 1968 Ford Galaxie 500 two-door that perfectly captures the feeling of old-school American cruising with its large body styling, deep V8 sound, and timeless late 1960s design. In my opinion, this Galaxie stands out because it offers a completely different experience compared to smaller muscle cars from the same era. Instead of focusing only on speed and aggressive performance, This car delivers comfort, road presence, and the kind of smooth V8 cruising that made full-size American cars so popular during the late 1960s. Under the hood sits a strong-running 390 cubic inch V8 engine paired with a legendary C6 automatic transmission. This combination has long been respected by Ford enthusiasts because of its durability, smooth operation, and strong torque. According to the seller, the car runs and drives great and also sounds excellent, which is exactly what many classic car fans want from a vintage Ford like this. In my opinion, the 390 engine fits the Galaxy perfectly because it gives the car effortless power while also producing the deep rumbling exhaust tone that makes classic American V8 cars feel alive every time they hit the road. The C6 automatic transmission is another major advantage because it is widely known as one of Ford's toughest and most reliable transmissions ever built. That makes this Galaxy much easier and more comfortable to drive regularly compared to some older manual transmission classics. In my opinion, cars like this are best enjoyed on relaxed highway drives, weekend cruises, and local car shows where the smooth ride and classic V8 sound become part of the entire experience rather than simply focusing on speed alone. Visually, the car features a blue exterior paired with a matching blue interior, creating a very authentic and period-correct appearance for a late 1960s Ford. The seller mentions that the paint is in really good condition, which helps the long body lines and chrome trim stand out even more. In my opinion, the matching blue color combination gives the car extra personality and preserves the vintage feel that makes classics from this era so appealing. Unlike many modern cars that use safe and neutral color choices, vehicles from the 1960s often had bold styling and unique combinations that made them instantly recognizable. Inside, the interior is described as being in all-right shape overall. While not perfect, it appears comfortable and usable, which honestly may appeal more to enthusiasts looking for a driver-quality classic rather than a trailer queen show car. In my opinion, slightly imperfect classics are often more enjoyable because owners feel more comfortable actually driving and using them rather than constantly worrying about preserving flawless condition. The large cabin and classic dashboard design likely still provide the nostalgic atmosphere that people expect when sitting inside a full-size American car from this era. The seller does mention a slight vibration above 60 miles per hour, although it is expected to be repaired soon. In my opinion, being open about small issues like that is actually a good sign because honesty is extremely important when selling vintage vehicles. Nearly every classic car has a few imperfections or maintenance needs somewhere, especially one that has been driven over many years. The important part is that the seller acknowledges the issue and plans to address it rather than hiding it completely. Another positive detail is the inclusion of new tires, which helps make the car more road-ready for cruising and longer drives. Small details like good tires can make a huge difference on large vintage cars because they improve safety, ride quality, and overall drivability. In my opinion, that suggests the car has continued to receive maintenance and attention instead of simply being left sitting and used for long periods of time. One of the reasons the Galaxy 500 remains interesting today is because it offers something different from the more common classic muscle car choices. While Mustangs, Camaros, and Chevelles often dominate the collector market, full-size coupes like the Galaxy provide a smoother, more relaxed personality while still delivering classic V8 power and unmistakable vintage styling. In my opinion, that uniqueness makes the Galaxy feel underrated compared to many other American classics from the same period. Located in Oak Hill, Ohio, and priced at $12,000, this 1968 Ford Galaxy 500 appears to offer a lot of classic American character at a relatively affordable price. The seller is mainly interested in trades involving diesel trucks, a Harley-Davidson Street Glide, or something similar, and may even add cash for the right deal. Overall, in my opinion, this Galaxy feels like the type of car built to be enjoyed on the open road, at local cruise nights, and during relaxed weekend drives where the sound of the V8 and the presence of the car become just as important as the destination itself. Number 10. 1963 Ford Falcon. In my opinion, this 1963 Ford Falcon is a very interesting example of how a simple compact classic can be transformed into a stylish and highly usable custom hot rod without losing its vintage personality. The early Falcon was originally designed to be a lightweight and practical economy car, but over the years these cars became extremely popular among hot rod builders because of their clean body lines, lightweight construction, and huge modification potential. This particular example appears to take that formula and modernize it in a way that makes the car far more enjoyable to drive in today's world while still preserving its classic 1960s appearance. According to the seller, this Falcon started life as a Florida car before being rebuilt and updated into a custom street machine. Personally, I think starting with a southern car is always a major advantage because vehicles from warmer climates typically avoid the severe rust issues often found on older cars from colder regions. Rust can easily become one of the most expensive parts of any restoration, so beginning with a cleaner body usually creates a much better foundation for long-term ownership and customization. One of the biggest highlights of this Falcon is definitely the drivetrain upgrade. Under the hood sits a modernized 5.0-liter engine paired with an AOD automatic transmission. In my opinion, that combination dramatically improves the overall drivability of the car compared to the original factory setup. The Ford 5.0 engine has become legendary among enthusiasts because of its reliability, strong aftermarket support, and excellent balance between power and simplicity. Instead of struggling with outdated components from the early 1960s, the next owner gets a classic car that likely starts easier, drives smoother, and performs much better in modern traffic conditions. The addition of the AOD overdrive automatic transmission is another upgrade I personally think makes a huge difference. Older classic cars often suffer from high highway RPMs that make long-distance cruising less comfortable, but an overdrive transmission allows the engine to run at lower RPM while driving at higher speeds. That makes the car feel more relaxed and practical for regular driving rather than just short weekend trips around town. The seller also mentions several suspension and braking upgrades that completely modernize the driving experience. The Mustang 2 front suspension setup is one of the most common and respected upgrades for classic Ford builds because it improves steering response, ride quality, and handling characteristics. Combined with four-wheel power disc brakes, this Falcon likely feels far safer and more controllable than a stock 1963 model would have originally felt. Personally, I think upgrades like these are extremely valuable because they allow classic cars to keep up with modern traffic while still maintaining their vintage appearance. Another nice addition is the aluminum radiator, which should help improve cooling efficiency and reliability, especially during warm weather cruising or stop-and-go traffic. Older classic cars often struggle with overheating issues, so upgraded cooling systems can make a major difference in everyday usability. The upgraded 8-inch rear end also suggests the drivetrain was built to handle the additional power from the 5.0 engine more reliably than the original components. This Falcon also appears to include several comfort and convenience upgrades that make it more enjoyable to own. The power convertible top and power windows add a level of usability that many classic cars simply do not have. Personally, I think these kinds of features help bridge the gap between old-school style and modern convenience. You still get the classic driving experience, but without sacrificing basic comfort during regular use. Visually, the red exterior paired with a tan interior probably gives the car a very clean and timeless appearance. Early Falcons already have simple and attractive body lines, and adding custom touches like Craigar wheels gives the vehicle a more aggressive hot rod stance without going overboard. In my opinion, Craigar wheels are one of those classic modifications that instantly make an older American car look more muscular and period-correct at the same time. The B&M Quick Silver Shifter is another nice detail because it adds a more performance-oriented feel inside the cabin while complementing the upgraded drivetrain. The seller does honestly mention a few remaining imperfections, including 2 small areas of cracked paint, unfinished carpet work around the shifter, and a vibration that appears around 65 miles per hour. The seller suspects the vibration may simply be related to tire balancing. Personally, I actually appreciate when sellers are transparent about small flaws because no custom classic car is ever completely perfect. Minor cosmetic imperfections and small mechanical issues are very common with older builds, especially vehicles that are actively driven and enjoyed rather than hidden away in storage. What I find especially appealing about this Falcon is the balance between classic styling and modern performance upgrades. Some heavily modified cars lose their original charm, but this build sounds like it still respects the personality of the original Falcon while making it significantly more practical and enjoyable to drive. It seems like the kind of car that could comfortably attend local car shows, weekend cruises, or even longer highway trips without feeling outdated or difficult to operate. With approximately 79,900 miles shown on the odometer, a clean title, and no major damage reported, this custom 1963 Ford Falcon appears to be a very solid and thoughtfully built street cruiser. Located in Greenville, Wisconsin, the car is currently listed for $32,000. Overall, in my opinion, this Falcon could be an excellent option for someone who wants classic 1960s styling combined with modernized performance, upgraded handling, and improved drivability without sacrificing the spirit of the original car. Number 11. This 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 honestly feels like the kind of American muscle car that completely steals the spotlight the second it appears. In my opinion, the Chevelle SS has always been one of the greatest muscle cars ever built because it perfectly combines aggressive styling, massive V8 power, and timeless street presence. And this particular resto mod sounds like an absolute monster. The very first thing that grabs my attention is the custom two-tone gray paint. Personally, I think this color choice gives the car a completely different personality compared to the traditional bright muscle car colors from the 70s. Instead of looking flashy, this Chevelle feels modern, aggressive, and almost intimidating. The fact that the engine compartment and engine block were also painted to match the exterior makes the whole build sound incredibly detailed and professionally done. One thing I really appreciate about this car is that it blends classic muscle car styling with modern performance upgrades. In my opinion, that's exactly why resto-mod builds have become so popular. You still get the raw personality and iconic design of a vintage muscle car, but with improvements that make the vehicle more enjoyable, reliable, and capable to drive today. And honestly, when you hear 1970 Chevelle SS 454, you already know you're talking about one of the legends of the muscle car era. The SS 454 name carries serious weight in the automotive world because these cars represented the peak of American horsepower wars back in the late 60s and early 70s. The seller mentions that the car has only around 2,000 break-in miles since restoration, which honestly makes this build feel extremely fresh. Personally, I think low mileage after a full restoration is a huge advantage because it means most of the upgraded components are still practically new. Inside the car, it sounds like almost everything has been redone. The new bucket seats with custom upholstery, new carpeting, and new headliner likely make the cabin feel far more modern while still keeping the classic muscle car atmosphere alive. Personally, I think a good interior is just as important as horsepower because it completely changes how enjoyable the car feels during long drives. One feature that really stands out to me is the Dakota digital gauge setup. In my opinion, digital gauges are one of the coolest modern upgrades you can add to a classic muscle car because they combine modern functionality with a clean custom appearance. It gives the interior a more futuristic feel while still respecting the original style of the vehicle. The Momo steering wheel and tilt steering are also great touches in my opinion. Small upgrades like that often make classic cars feel much more comfortable and driver-focused compared to their original factory setups. Mechanically, this Chevelle sounds incredibly serious. The large tube ceramic-coated headers paired with the 3-inch exhaust and Flowmaster mufflers probably make this car sound absolutely insane. Honestly, one of the biggest reasons people love classic American muscle cars is the sound, and I can already imagine this SS 454 producing a deep, aggressive rumble that shakes the ground at idle. Personally, I think Flowmaster exhaust systems perfectly match old-school muscle cars because they give the engine that iconic raw American V8 tone enthusiasts love so much. Another thing that really impresses me is the upgraded 4-wheel Corvette disc brake setup with slotted and vented rotors plus dual pistons. In my opinion, modern brake upgrades are one of the smartest improvements you can make on a powerful classic car. Old muscle cars were famous for big horsepower, but braking performance often lagged behind. This setup likely makes the Chevelle feel much safer and more confident on the road. The rear anti-sway bar is another detail I personally appreciate because suspension upgrades can completely transform how classic muscle cars handle. Cars from this era were designed mainly for straight-line speed, so adding better suspension components usually makes them feel much more stable and responsive during real driving. The Turbo 400 automatic transmission is also a legendary choice in my opinion. The TH400 is famous for its durability and strength, especially in high-horsepower muscle cars. Combined with a B&M performance shifter, this setup probably makes the car feel both aggressive and fun to drive. Visually, I think the color-matched gray 5-spoke rims complete the entire look perfectly. They give the Chevelle a much more modern pro-touring appearance without losing the aggressive muscle car identity that makes the SS 454 so iconic. One detail that really stood out to me is the description of the underside being very clean and painted. Honestly, that tells me this restoration likely received a huge amount of attention to detail. A lot of builds focus only on what people can see, but when the underside is also clean and finished properly, it usually means the builders truly cared about the entire car. What I personally love most about this Chevelle is the combination of old-school muscle and modern refinement. Modern performance cars today are extremely fast, but many of them feel too computerized and disconnected. Cars like this still feel raw, loud, mechanical, and emotional while offering upgrades that make them more usable in the modern world. And honestly, the 1970 Chevelle body style itself is already legendary. In my opinion, it's one of the most aggressive and best-looking muscle car designs ever created. The wide stance, sharp body lines, and powerful front-end appearance still look intimidating even today. Now, the asking price of $89,900 is obviously serious money, but honestly, considering the level of restoration, customization, upgrades, and the iconic status of the SS454, I can understand why the seller values it that highly. High-quality resto-mod builds can easily cost enormous amounts of money and time to complete properly. Overall, in my opinion, this 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS454 Restomod feels like the perfect combination of classic American muscle car history and modern performance engineering. It has style, sound, power, and presence that modern vehicles simply cannot duplicate. And honestly, I think this is exactly the kind of car that makes people fall in love with American muscle cars in the first place. Number 12. Today we're taking a look at a 1973 Dodge Swinger, and honestly, this is one of those classic Mopars that has a very cool old-school street machine vibe. In my opinion, cars like the Dodge Swinger don't always get as much attention as Chargers or Challengers, but that's actually part of what makes them interesting. They're smaller, lighter, and often feel more raw and connected to the road. This particular Swinger comes equipped with a 340 engine paired with a 727 TorqueFlite transmission, which is already a very respectable combination in the Mopar world. The 340 has always been known as one of Chrysler's best small-block V8 engines because it delivers strong performance while still being lighter and more responsive than some of the bigger big-block setups. Personally, I think the 340 gives cars like this the perfect balance between power and drivability. The seller also mentions that the transmission was recently rebuilt and has under 4,000 miles on it. Honestly, that's a pretty important detail because transmission work on older muscle cars can become expensive very quickly. Knowing that the 727 TorqueFlite has already been rebuilt could save the next owner a lot of money and headaches down the road. And speaking of the 727 transmission, Mopar fans know these automatics have a reputation for being incredibly durable. They were used behind some very powerful engines back in the day, so having one in this Swinger definitely fits the character of the car. What I personally like about 70s Dodge Swingers is their simplicity. They don't try to be luxury cars or overly complicated performance machines. They're straightforward American classics with aggressive styling and enough V8 power to make driving fun. In many ways, that simplicity is exactly why these cars still have such a loyal following today. Another cool thing about the Swinger is the compact body design. Compared to larger muscle cars from the same era, these cars often feel more nimble and sporty. You still get the classic muscle car sound and attitude, but in a package that feels a little lighter and more playful on the street. The seller describes the car as being in good condition, and while the listing itself is short, sometimes simple listings can still hide very solid cars. In my opinion, the important thing here is the drivetrain combination and the fact that major mechanical work like the transmission rebuild has already been completed. The owner also clearly states no trades, which usually tells me they're serious about selling and probably know the value of what they have. And honestly, finding older Mopars that haven't been completely destroyed, over-modified, or rusted away is getting harder every year. One thing I always appreciate about classic Mopars is the sound and personality they carry. Even at idle, cars like this have a completely different attitude compared to modern performance cars. The vibration, the exhaust tone, and the mechanical feel all combine to create an experience that feels much more alive and emotional. Personally, I think this Dodge Swinger could make a really fun weekend cruiser, local car show vehicle, or even a long-term project to continue improving over time. It already has a solid foundation with the 340 engine and rebuilt transmission, so the next owner could simply enjoy it as is or slowly customize it further depending on their style. Located in Independence, Kentucky, this 1973 Dodge Swinger is listed at $20,000 or best offer. Overall, in my opinion, this sounds like a solid and enjoyable classic Mopar with a strong drivetrain setup, vintage muscle car character, and the kind of old-school driving experience that continues to attract enthusiasts decades later. Number 13. A heavily upgraded 1968 Chevrolet Chevelle that appears to be built with one primary goal in mind: serious street performance combined with modern suspension and drivetrain improvements. In my opinion, The 1968 Chevelle is already one of the most desirable muscle car platforms from the late 1960s because of its aggressive body lines, wide stance, and massive aftermarket support. Even in factory form, these cars have always carried a powerful road presence, but this particular build takes things much further by combining modern performance components with classic American muscle car styling. Located in Angola, Indiana, this Chevelle looks like the type of car that was designed not only to turn heads at car shows but also to deliver a very aggressive driving experience every time it hits the road. One of the biggest highlights of the build is the brand new Blueprint 400 small block engine producing over 500 horsepower. In my opinion, that level of power in a classic Chevelle creates a completely different driving personality compared to stock factory setups from the late 60s. Blueprint engines have become popular among muscle car enthusiasts because they offer strong performance, reliability, and professionally assembled components right out of the crate. Personally, I think choosing a Blueprint engine is a smart decision for anyone wanting modern dependability without sacrificing the raw feeling of a traditional American V8. Producing more than 500 horsepower, this Chevelle likely delivers extremely quick acceleration, strong throttle response, and the kind of tire-smoking performance that made muscle cars legendary in the first place. Feeding the engine is a brand new Brawler 850 CFM carburetor, which in my opinion perfectly fits the aggressive nature of the build. A large performance carburetor like this allows the engine to breathe properly and maximize its horsepower potential. Combined with the high-output small block setup, the car likely produces an aggressive exhaust note and sharp throttle response that immediately grabs attention. Personally, I think carbureted muscle cars still deliver a very raw and mechanical driving feel that many enthusiasts prefer over fully computerized modern performance vehicles. There is something about the sound, vibration, and direct connection to the engine that gives classic muscle cars their unique personality. Backing the engine is a brand new turbo 400 automatic transmission, another major upgrade that adds both strength and reliability to the overall package. In my opinion, the TH400 is one of the toughest automatic transmissions ever built for American muscle cars, making it an excellent choice for handling over 500 horsepower. Unlike weaker factory transmissions that can struggle under heavy performance use, the Turbo 400 is widely respected for its durability and ability to survive hard launches and aggressive driving conditions. Personally, I think pairing a powerful Blueprint engine with a fresh TH400 transmission creates a very dependable high-performance drivetrain that should handle serious street use without constant mechanical concerns. The suspension upgrades on this Chevelle are equally impressive and suggest that the car was built to handle modern roads far better than a stock late 1960s muscle car. According to the seller, the vehicle has received extensive CPP suspension upgrades along with Viking coilovers in the front and Viking shocks in the rear. In my opinion, suspension improvements are often just as important as horsepower upgrades because they dramatically improve the way a classic car feels behind the wheel. Many older muscle cars can feel loose, floaty, or unstable at higher speeds, but modern suspension systems help tighten up handling, improve ride quality, and increase overall driver confidence. Personally, I think Viking suspension components are a great choice because they are well known in the performance world for balancing comfort and aggressive handling characteristics. The Chevelle also features a completely new brake system, which is another critical upgrade considering the amount of horsepower this car now produces. In my opinion, increasing engine performance without upgrading braking capability can create serious drivability and safety issues, so it is encouraging to see that attention was also given to stopping power. Modern brake systems dramatically improve response, control, and overall confidence when driving high-performance classic cars. Another detail mentioned by the seller is the installation of a brand new chrome fuel tank. While this may sound like a smaller modification compared to the engine and suspension work, personally, I think details like this show the level of care invested into the overall build. Fresh fuel system components are important for reliability, especially in classic vehicles that may have originally suffered from rust or aging fuel delivery systems. The chrome finish also adds extra visual appeal underneath the car, helping support the show-quality muscle car appearance many enthusiasts appreciate. The seller states that receipts are available for the work completed, which in my opinion adds credibility and value to the build. Documentation is always important with modified muscle cars because it helps confirm the quality of parts used and provides buyers with a clearer understanding of the investment already made into the vehicle. The seller also clearly mentions that there will be no trades and no responses to automatic messages, which personally gives the impression that this is a serious sale aimed at genuine buyers rather than casual inquiries. Priced at $33,000, this 1968 Chevrolet Chevelle appears to offer a substantial amount of performance and aftermarket upgrades for the money. In my opinion, building a classic muscle car to this level from scratch would likely cost significantly more once engine, suspension, transmission, brake, and supporting upgrades are all included. That is one reason why completed builds like this often attract attention from enthusiasts who want immediate performance without spending years assembling a project themselves. Number 14. A classic 1965 Oldsmobile F85 that delivers vintage American style, smooth V8 performance, and the kind of nostalgic personality that makes mid-1960s cars so enjoyable to own today. In my opinion, this F85 stands out because it feels like an honest and affordable classic that still preserves much of its original charm without pretending to be a perfect showroom restoration. Cars like this often attract enthusiasts who want something they can actually drive, enjoy, and gradually improve over time rather than simply storing away as a collector investment. Under the hood sits a 330 cubic inch V8 engine paired with an automatic transmission, giving the car the smooth and comfortable driving experience Oldsmobile was known for during the 1960s. The seller mentions that the car runs good, which is extremely important for a vehicle of this age. In my opinion, the 330 V8 is a great fit for the F85 because it provides enough power to make the car feel strong and enjoyable on the road, while still maintaining the relaxed cruising personality that many classic American cars from this era are famous for. One of the most attractive things about this Oldsmobile is its originality and classic appearance. The car is finished in green with a matching green interior, creating a very authentic mid-1960s color combination that immediately gives the vehicle a unique personality. In my opinion, classic cars from this era look best when they keep their original style and factory-inspired color schemes because it helps preserve the feeling of stepping back into a completely different time in automotive history. The matching interior and exterior colors give this F85 a very period-correct look that would definitely stand out at local cruise nights or classic car events. The seller describes the overall condition as very good, and several important maintenance items have already been addressed, including a new battery along with good tires and brakes. In my opinion, those details make a big difference because they suggest the car is still being maintained and driven rather than sitting neglected for years. Many affordable classic cars end up requiring major mechanical work before they can even be enjoyed properly, so hearing that the vehicle runs well and has solid basic components already in place makes this F85 feel much more approachable for someone looking to enter the classic car hobby. Of course, the seller is also honest about the car's imperfections, which actually makes the listing feel more trustworthy. The seats could use recovering, and the blinkers, wipers, and radio currently do not work. In my opinion, issues like these are relatively minor for a 60-year-old classic car, especially considering the overall condition being described. Electrical problems are extremely common on vintage vehicles and are often much easier to repair than major rust or engine problems. The fact that the seller openly mentions these issues instead of hiding them gives buyers a more realistic understanding of the car. The mileage shows around 39,000 miles, although the seller admits they cannot fully confirm whether that number is original. That kind of uncertainty is actually very common with older vehicles from this era, especially cars that have passed through multiple owners over several decades. In my opinion, the actual condition of the vehicle matters much more than the mileage number alone when dealing with classic cars. Based on the description, this Oldsmobile appears to have been cared for reasonably well throughout its life. What makes the F85 especially interesting today is that it often gets overlooked compared to more famous muscle cars from the same era. While Mustangs, Chevelles, and GTOs usually dominate the spotlight, cars like the Oldsmobile F85 offer a more unique and less common alternative while still delivering classic V8 power and vintage styling. In my opinion, that uniqueness can actually make ownership more rewarding because the car feels different from the usual classic scene everywhere else. Located in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and priced at only $9,500, this 1965 Oldsmobile F85 appears to offer a very affordable way to experience classic American V8 ownership. It may not be perfect, but honestly, that is part of its charm. This feels like the kind of car someone could slowly improve while still enjoying it on the road at the same time. Overall, in my opinion, this Oldsmobile represents the type of vintage American cruiser that still delivers personality, style, and nostalgia without requiring an overwhelming budget to own and enjoy. Number 15. 1962 Chevrolet Corvair 900. In my opinion, This 1962 Chevrolet Corvair 900 is the kind of classic project car that immediately stands out because it represents one of the most unique and unconventional vehicles ever produced by an American manufacturer. While most American cars during the early 1960s relied on large front-mounted engines and traditional rear-wheel drive layouts, the Corvair took a completely different approach with its rear-mounted air-cooled engine design. Even today, more than 60 years later, the Corvair still feels unusual compared to almost anything else produced in the United States during that period. This particular example is a 900 series model finished in red with a matching red interior, giving it a very classic early 1960s appearance. Personally, I think cars like the Corvair have a charm that comes from being different. Chevrolet was willing to experiment with new engineering ideas during this era, and the Corvair became one of the boldest examples of that creativity. Instead of following the same formula as other American compact cars, Chevrolet introduced a lightweight rear-engine platform that gave the Corvair its own driving personality and distinctive styling. According to the seller, this Corvair has been sitting for many years and currently comes with a title in hand. Naturally, after sitting and used for such a long period, the car should probably be viewed primarily as a restoration project rather than a ready-to-drive classic. Personally, I think that is part of what makes vehicles like this interesting because they offer enthusiasts the opportunity to bring an older piece of automotive history back to life. Some buyers enjoy the restoration process just as much as driving the finished vehicle, especially when the car itself is something uncommon and historically significant. The odometer reportedly shows around 180,000 miles, which is certainly high mileage, but mileage often becomes less important on project cars of this age because most major systems eventually need rebuilding or restoration anyway. In my opinion, what matters more is whether the vehicle is complete, structurally solid, and still retains its original identity. Since the seller mentions having the title available, that alone can be a major advantage because paperwork issues on older classic cars sometimes become surprisingly difficult to resolve. One thing I personally find fascinating about the Corvair is how different it feels compared to other American vehicles from the same era. The rear-engine layout created unique handling characteristics and a very distinctive driving experience that separated it from traditional domestic cars. Even visually, the Corvair had a sleeker and more European-inspired appearance compared to many bulky full-size American sedans of the early 1960s. That uniqueness is one of the reasons why Corvairs continue to maintain a dedicated fan base today despite being such an unconventional design. The Corvair 900 series itself was positioned as a slightly more upscale trim level, offering improved styling and additional comfort compared to the base models. Even though this particular car will almost certainly require restoration work after sitting for years, it still has the potential to become a very interesting classic once properly revived. Personally, I think older project cars like this are appealing because they allow enthusiasts to preserve vehicles that are becoming increasingly rare on the road. Another reason this Corvair stands out is because it represents an important chapter in American automotive history. The Corvair became one of Chevrolet's most talked about vehicles during the 1960s, partly because of its unusual engineering and partly because of the controversy that later surrounded the model. Regardless of its history, the Corvair remains one of the most recognizable and collectible compact American cars of its time. For some enthusiasts, owning a Corvair is less about outright performance and more about appreciating its unique design and historical significance. At an asking price of only $1,000, this car appears to be positioned as an affordable restoration candidate rather than a finished collector vehicle. Personally, I think that low price could make it attractive to hobbyists looking for a budget-friendly project or collectors searching for a unique vintage Chevrolet to restore over time. Even if the car requires substantial work, finding a complete titled classic vehicle at this price point is becoming increasingly uncommon. Overall, I think this 1962 Chevrolet Corvair 900 could be a very interesting opportunity for the right buyer. It is clearly not a perfect or road-ready car, but it does offer something many modern vehicles cannot, which is character and uniqueness. Located in Virgilina, Virginia, this Corvair represents a chance to own a piece of unusual American automotive history and potentially transform it from a long-forgotten project into a revived vintage classic once again.